Hi there, Dave Wang here. Today I want to talk to you about counseling and why so many, particularly men, seem to have an issue finding help when they desperately need it. Now, often when I'm talking to someone in crisis, they have a million reasons not to reach out to a counselor. They feel that they're too busy, that it'll take too much time, or that they don't believe it'll help. I used to believe that as well until life threw me some curveballs. I just simply couldn't handle things on my own anymore. I have found counseling to be incredibly helpful, and modern counseling is actually very results oriented. Depending on the problem, they really try and achieve significant results as quickly as possible. In my case, 5 counseling sessions were enough to enable me to help start me on the path to recovery. A friend of mine whose OCD was so bad that he couldn't even drive, he was able to drive after, I believe, about 4 to 5 sessions. Sometimes, however, counseling needs to go on throughout a lifetime, particularly when there's an addiction involved. Today, I have the honor of having Mike Wrenshall with me as a special guest. We're going to talk about addictions, and in particular, sex addictions, and the role of counseling to help keep the addiction under control. Okay. I'm really pleased to have Mike Wrenshall here with us today, and how are things over in Thunder Bay?
They're good. We're just getting out of a cold snap, so we're grateful for that.
That's great. I've seen videos of you on YouTube, and you have a very fascinating story. Could you tell me a little bit, give me a quick little overview of your story, especially what happened when you were younger?
When I was a little guy, I was abused for 2 or 3 years by a close family member, and then as I grew up and pushed away, it stopped, and I went to military college, and after military college, after graduation, I had a chat with my mom and dad, and my mom had mentioned that the person who'd been abusing me had been charged again. And I had 2 thoughts right away, which I didn't say to my mother, I didn't say to anybody. I just said, well, that probably never happened to me, because it was locked in a box in sort of a denial. And then the other thing I said to myself is, and if it did happen to me, it certainly didn't affect me, because look at me now. That essentially was the story, and then I got married and had a family, and unbeknownst to me was carrying these bags in my life, and they were affecting my behaviors and my actions and sometimes my thoughts. And I had a complete denial, complete meltdown after about 25 years of marriage, and that's when I had to face reality and actually look at myself, or it's when I became willing to face reality, put it that way. So that kind of gets you from point A to point B, which was a number of years ago.
Now, what role did counseling in particular play in your life?
Well, I had counseling when I lost my job, and I had a very good high-paying career, and when I lost that, I had counseling. But the counseling was more about my future and what my strong points were, and not to worry, because no matter what I did, I would be successful. I went back into sales, and that turned out to be true. So that counseling didn't really do anything in terms of the abuse, but it did help me in terms of my own confidence level. And then when I had my sort of big meltdown, after some interviews, I went to a men's group, which was, the criteria was you had to be male, you had to have been abused, and you had to be a person who was not abusing anybody nor had you. So those were the criteria. And pretty much one of the things when you're a sex addict is you kind of think you're from Mars, you think you're an alien. It's very lonely, and it's it's a big bag of sand on your shoulders. And one of the things I got out of that particular counseling, which lasted about 10 weeks, was that I wasn't alone. Here were all these other men who I had great respect for, and as the group got to know each other, we found out that we all felt the same, and we all had the same issues, and we were all addicted in one shape or another to either sex or drugs or alcohol or all three. So that was a big eye-opener.
So what's the, I know a lot of people, in particular men, I think, have this idea that we don't really need counseling. We can just like tough it out, right? And obviously you reached out and you joined this group. What would you say to people who feel that, you know, all you gotta do is just tough it out, that we don't really need counseling at the end of the day?
Well, just to backtrack a little bit, that group helped me feel less alone, but it was not the kind of group that you could go to on a continuous basis, nor did it offer any solutions. It was simply a group of people that were in a safe environment that could talk and come up with their own conclusions. I found out I was a sex addict when I went to the internet and looked it up and looked at the qualities. You know, they'll say, here's 10 qualities of a person who is addicted to sex or pornography or whatever it is. And as you went down the list, like each one would get a star. And after you get 9 or 10 stars out of 10, you have to put your head in the sand, or you have to say, well, you know what, maybe I really am one of those people. And I really didn't get any counseling because I didn't think I needed it, and I thought I could tough it out. And I went for a few years, and then I fell off, and I went for a few years. And then in Central America, I had a very bad accident in a mobile van. And there were 8 strangers in the van, plus my niece and myself. And everybody was hurt except for myself. And it's at that point where I did some soul searching, because I was thinking about suicide. Because you lead a double life, and it's not only complicated, but it's very destructive to your self-image. After a week, I walked into an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and turned my life over to God and said, I surrender, I'm making a mess of this, I can't do it. And the group, fortunately, was non-judgmental and full of goodwill and good spirit, and that's what I refer to as my home club. And that's when I became truly clean. That lasted about 5 years, and then I fell off the wagon again. So that's kind of the story. But by the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was 59 or 58. So it took me a long time to actually seek help and counseling and stop saying, well, I can do this myself. I've been to a men's group. I'm tough. I got this.
How does counseling help?
It's a bit like a puzzle. I mean, there is no such thing as any bad counseling. And I did have counseling. Sometimes it helped me with handles on things. I learned the word social boundaries. Those were words that I didn't know. And for all that matters, they didn't exist because of what happened to me when I was little. But the most significant event for sure was, I think, attending Alcoholics Anonymous. And I wanted to explain this to you, which you may already know. It's very easy to understand the theory. from the brain to the heart is only, 15 inches? To actually accept the theory, okay, it wasn't your fault. You're not a bad person. You're not this, you're not this. You were taken advantage of. Sometimes that's an easy mental sell, but it's a hard sell for the heart. The heart kind of drags along behind. The counseling, I think it was kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, and all of the counseling helped me all the way along. The best thing that happened to me all the way along is that I came to accept that I was an addict instead of being in this world of denial.
It sounds like it's not something that ends suddenly. Like you don't go to counseling and all of a sudden you're cured. And there's always sort of the saying that once an addict, always an addict. Is that really the case, or like did you always have to be vigilant to make sure that you don't slide back into bad habits?
I did slide back into bad habits. I'm only clean now for a couple of years, more than a year, less than 2. But yes, I believe once an addict, always an addict. And here's some proof. It's not proof, but maybe examples. I have a very good friend with AA, and I think he went 23 years sober. And then one night he decided he could have some wine with his meal. That wine with his meal cost him 12 years. And then I look at my own example. If I'm addicted to pornography or a massage, and you give me a massage because I have a sore back, I am not leaving there thinking, okay, well, I pulled that off and look, no harm, no foul. Because that's not true. Because within a week I'll be looking for another, and then it'll be within 5 days, and then it'll be within 3 days, and then away you go again down that slippery slope. So sometimes you just have to say, I'm short, or I'm tall, or I have a big nose, or I'm an addict. And it's hurtful to know that you can't do something, but in terms of your life, it's extremely beneficial. This is just my opinion. I don't think somebody who says, I'm a recovered sex addict, I think they've got the wrong terminology. Recovered means they're fixed. I don't know if you're ever fixed.
So it's important to keep vigilant and continue to seek out help whenever you fall, and not to give up, I guess, after you've fallen. You just keep going back and keep fighting.
Well, Dave, you're fighting your ego. That's the problem. And so your ego says, I'm good to go. Look how good I've been. Look how good I was. Look how good I can be. And you know how powerful the ego is. Yeah. And then the next thing you know, your ego is saying, I can do this, and there's nothing bad going to happen from it. So yes, you do need to be mindful.
If there is someone out there struggling with any sort of an addiction or going through a tough time, do you have any sort of parting words that you want to say to kind of encourage people? Or
yes, 2. One is you're not alone. There are a lot more people addicted to pornography than I am, who the last thing they would prefer to do is actually say that. I used to speak all around the United States, and anywhere I was asked about recovering from being abused. And I know one of the people who interviewed me confided in me afterwards that he had his own addiction with pornography. So you're not alone. And the other one is somewhere, somehow, we need to realize that we don't control the world. Like, it's not a symphony and we're not the conductor. And that's the mind of an addict. Like, you need to play your fiddle when I move my baton, and you need to come in when I do this, and you need to come in to do when I do that. And we're not very good conductors, and nor do we have any power, nor do we have any control. And in my own situation with health, there's a great example. I don't control that. I'm not in control. It's frustrating, but it's a little bit of logic that might help some people, is that the desire to control and to run your symphony the way you want is a recipe for a collision.
So I know that you do have some health issues right now, and I want you to know that you're in my thoughts and my prayers, and I really appreciate you taking the time out to chat with me, because I think this is something that especially with men, we don't talk about very much. So I really appreciate your openness and your honesty, and really thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure, and I would like you to know that I would do this if I was healthy as a horse, because one of the gifts I've been given, even though I beat myself up on the inside, and even though sometimes I feel poorly about my own self-image, is I am not at all scared to speak out and own it. And I'm not sure why that is. If there's anything in me owning it that helps someone else, then that's a blessing.
Great. Thank you so much, and take care.
Thanks a lot, Dave. You have a great day.
Many thanks to Mike for talking to us today. If you're going through any crisis, make sure you reach out for help. Click on the link below to get started. I also hope you'll consider hitting subscribe at the end of this video and join the Critical Mass YouTube channel. The song playing in the background during the interview is called Body and Blood. The song you're hearing right now in the background is called Dorian Gray. This is actually a song off of our Grasping for Hope in the Darkness album, and it's actually about addiction to pornography. You can also check out a link to the song video for Dorian Gray at the end of this video. As well, please consider going to www.criticalmassmusic.org and becoming a patron. I'll be creating not only music videos, but also there is exclusive concert footage, sneak peeks of upcoming videos, stories behind the song videos, as well as our life hacks with Critical Mass videos, where I will give tips on how to live your life abundantly. Thanks as well to our patron subscribers who help make this video possible. Take care and God bless.